We are diving deep today into, well, probably the most talked about molecule in modern life, dopamine.
Yeah, it really is. It's the brain chemical everyone references, but honestly, that common view that it's just the feel-good button, it's wildly incomplete.
Right.
And if you're trying to figure out how to focus, build good habits, or just, navigate this crazy digital world without getting constantly sidetracked, understanding what dopamine really does is, well, it's critical.
I totally agree. We spent a lot of time with your sources to get past that simple pleasure idea and really unpack dopamine's actual power, its role in motivation, how it builds habits, and crucially, how the modern world is kind of engineered to hijack this very system.
Okay.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it, because this deep dive is, I think, necessary knowledge for you, the listener. When you grasp the sheer amount of effort going into capturing your attention, understanding your own brain chemistry becomes like your best line of defense against feeling overwhelmed.
Okay, first things first. Let's tackle that pleasure chemical myth head on, because the sources we looked at are really clear. Dopamine is much more about the anticipation, the seeking, the hunt, rather than the pleasure you get once you've found something.
That shift in perspective is huge. Dopamine is basically the want signal in your brain, not necessarily the like signal. It's what gets you off the couch, motivated to seek out rewards. It really maps out the path forward.
So it's the chemical buzz you get when you're expecting something good.
Exactly. Which, interestingly, is often why the journey, the pursuit, can feel more exciting than actually reaching the destination.
Huh. That's quite a paradox, isn't it? The arrival can feel a bit flat because the big dopamine hit already happened while we were chasing the goal.
Precisely. And this mechanism, this anticipation and drive, is how basically every behavior, good or bad, gets wired in. It becomes automatic. It's all managed by this pathway, often called the dopamine loop. It's a really powerful learning engine.
Okay, the dopamine loop. How does that actually work? I think breaking down the steps could really help listeners see why some habits, especially those compulsive ones, get so deeply ingrained.
Absolutely. It's useful to think of it as maybe a 6-step cycle. It all starts with a trigger.
Okay, a cue.
Right. A cue that your brain learns predicts a reward. Like hearing your phone buzz.
Mm-hmm.
That sound instantly triggers a surge of dopamine release. That's the anticipation building.
Got it.
That chemical surge then fuels the motivation to act, which drives the action itself, like, picking up the phone, starting to scroll.
Okay.
Then if you find something interesting or rewarding, a message, a cool post, you get the reward. But the crucial final step is learning.
Ah, the reinforcement.
Exactly. Your brain connects the trigger, the buzz, with the reward, interesting content, and that strengthens the whole neural pathway. It makes checking your phone next time feel almost automatic, almost involuntary.
Wow. So just the possibility of a small reward is enough for the brain to learn, hey, pick up the phone, and then that action becomes the default, even if half the time the stuff you see isn't even that satisfying.
That's precisely the mechanism. Now, take that ancient system, right?
Yeah.
Designed for survival rewards like finding food or water, which happen, intermittently,
Right, not constantly.
and throw it into the modern world where it meets the attention economy. That's where the trouble really starts.
Yeah, the stimuli is just relentless, the notifications, the infinite scroll feeds, those little satisfying animations when you buy something online or finish a game level. These aren't random, are they? They feel very deliberate.
Oh, they are absolutely calculated triggers. And here's where the system gets really vulnerable to, well, hijacking.
Yeah.
The use of what's called an unpredictable reward schedule.
Unpredictable. How does that work?
Think about a slot machine, or even just pulling down to refresh your social media feed. You pull the lever, you pull to refresh, but you never know exactly when the reward, the jackpot, the interesting post, the new like is going to show up.
Ah, okay. That variability.
That variable timing, it's scientifically shown to be the most powerful way to stimulate dopamine release and lock in behavior. It keeps you coming back for more, chasing that unpredictable hit.
So effectively, many of us are operating in this state of chronic high stimulation, constantly chasing the next little dopamine bump. What does that do to us long term? What are the consequences of keeping that baseline so artificially high?
Well, the effects on our cognitive function are pretty concerning based on the research. Your brain essentially gets used to these frequent, small, instant rewards.
Right.
And that leads directly to a shortened attention span. It becomes harder to focus deeply on something complex, like reading a book or working on a long report, because your brain is basically expecting a little reward hit every few minutes or even seconds.
And I guess if that high-intensity digital stimulation becomes the norm, then the simpler, quieter, real-world stuff must start to feel kind of dull in comparison.
It really does. You start to experience what the sources call a diminished appreciation for real-world pleasure. Things like a quiet walk, a good conversation, the satisfaction of finishing a challenging task.
Yeah.
They just don't register with the same intensity. Your system's been sort of flooded by all the novelty online, and that can quickly spiral. It can lead to a kind of dependence where you feel actual anxiety when you're separated from your devices. Your brain has learned that's its main source of motivation and reward, so it feels like something's missing.
Okay, that sounds pretty bleak. But the good news here, I hope, is that we're not just passive victims of our brain chemistry, right? Understanding this gives us tools.
Absolutely. Understanding the mechanism is the first step to regaining control, and there are clear strategies. Let's start with what's often called the hard reset, the dopamine detox.
The detox. Okay, what does that actually involve? It sounds intense.
It involves intentionally taking a break, temporarily abstaining from those activities that provide the biggest, most frequent dopamine hits. Things like maybe social media binges, junk food, video games, constant news checking.
So you're cutting off the super stimulating stuff for a bit.
Yeah, but the goal isn't to eliminate dopamine that's impossible and undesirable. The real goal is recalibration.
Recalibration. How does cutting things out help recalibrate?
Well, think of it like your brain's sensitivity has been dulled because the volume of stimulation has been cranked way too high for too long.
Okay.
The detox lowers that baseline tolerance. It turns the volume down. By stepping away from that overwhelming digital noise, you allow your brain to become sensitive again to more subtle, natural rewards.
Ah, I see. So things like reading a book or having quiet coffee.
Exactly. Those things start to feel genuinely pleasurable again because your system isn't constantly flooded. It can appreciate the quieter signals.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so once we've really done a reset, or even if we just want to manage things better day to day, how do we harness dopamine for productivity? We need motivation, right? We just want to direct it towards things that matter.
Right. We can actually leverage the system for good, particularly through smart goal setting. Remember, dopamine reinforces the behavior that leads to an anticipated reward.
Okay.
So instead of just focusing on some huge, distant goal way off in the future, which can feel overwhelming.
Yeah, demotivating sometimes.
The key is to break those large tasks down into smaller, achievable milestones, little wins along the way.
So creating a chain reaction of sorts, not waiting for the single big payoff, but getting little hits of satisfaction more consistently.
Precisely. The sources actually call this the dopamine domino effect. It's quite a neat concept.
That's no effect. I like that.
Yeah, each time you complete a small milestone, you get that little rewarding dopamine release, and that hit reinforces your motivation to tackle the next small step. It keeps the momentum going over the entire course of a long project.
Okay, that's a powerful mental strategy. Now, beyond mindset, the sources also really emphasize a couple of key physical factors for managing the system. First up, exercise.
Oh, exercise is fundamental. It's way more than just a temporary mood boost, though it does that too. Regular physical activity actually seems to structurally upgrade your brain.
Upgrade how?
Consistent workouts, and this doesn't have to be running marathons, even regular walking counts can increase the number of dopamine receptors in your brain. So you're literally enhancing your brain's capacity to experience pleasure and motivation from natural sources. It's like improving your hardware.
Wow. Okay, so exercise helps build a more receptive system, and the other pillar the sources stressed was sleep. Non-negotiable, they said.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Sleep is like the great stabilizer for this whole system. When you're sleep deprived, your body initially tries to compensate by pumping out more dopamine. That's why you might feel weirdly wired or hyper when you're exhausted.
Yeah, that crash comes later, though.
Exactly. It's an unsustainable surge, and in the long run, it actually messes with the system. It reduces the responsiveness of your dopamine receptors, so
Well,
you feel kind of artificially buzzed, but neurologically, you're less efficient. Consistent quality sleep is just crucial for keeping everything balanced and working properly.
okay. Exercise and sleep foundational. And then there was one more strategy that felt a bit counterintuitive. Mindfulness. Slowing down to boost a chemical associated with seeking. How does that work?
Yeah, it does seem paradoxical at first glance.
Yeah.
But mindfulness and meditation act as regulatory tools. They essentially train your brain to find reward and satisfaction in the present moment, rather than constantly needing to seek something external, some future hit.
So it's about finding contentment now.
Exactly. It helps stabilize the whole reward system, smoothing out those wild peaks and valleys caused by constant external pings and pushes. It reduces the frantic seeking energy.
Got it. So bringing this all together then.
Yeah, if we kind of connect this back to the bigger picture, the main takeaway, I think, is that dopamine itself isn't good or bad. It's just a really powerful driver of what we do. Managing it isn't about eliminating it. It's about finding a healthier equilibrium,
Yeah.
not constant frantic chasing.
Right. So by using strategies like maybe a detox sometimes, definitely smarter goal setting, and really prioritizing those natural boosters like exercise and sleep, plus maybe some mindfulness, you can actually regain some conscious control over this system. A system that, let's face it, the modern attention economy is working really hard to basically monetize and hijack.
That's the challenge. And, given that dopamine fundamentally drives us towards whatever we anticipate will be rewarding,
Mm-hmm.
and given that technology is getting incredibly sophisticated at predicting and even engineering those rewarding experiences for us, optimizing our clicks or scrolls or purchases, it does raise a pretty important question for you, the listener.
Which is,
How do you make sure that the goals you end up pursuing, the things you pour your energy into, are actually aligned with your own deep long-term values? How do you ensure they aren't just the most cleverly engineered short-term dopamine hits that someone else designed specifically to capture your attention and keep you hooked?
that's a powerful thought to leave people with. What are you really chasing?
Something to definitely think about as you decide where to point that powerful motivation system next.
Indeed. Well, thank you. This has been incredibly insightful. We'll see you next time for the deep dive.
To get more details about the dopamine effect, unlock your brain's potential for motivation, success, and well-being, click the below link to get the book. Subscribe us to get more content like this.